So, when you're managing individual contributors, it can be fairly easy to get a really good handle on the work. You can see what's happening, you can coach it, you can redirect it, and of course, when needed, you can roll up your sleeves and get into it. But when you move up to managing managers, that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. The work is happening 2 or 3 layers away from you, and the problems that reach you tend to be more on the complex side. And the people you're leading are often just as capable as you are, and of course, likely just as opinionated. It's a different kind of hard, isn't it? What's really challenging about this is the mindset shift that we need to go through. Most of us got into operational leadership by being really good at solving problems. Managing managers means giving that up. And for someone who's been in operations, that can be one of the hardest things. So you need to stop being the expert in the room and start being the person who makes sure that they are the experts in the room. One of the places that this shift shows up is in your one-on-ones. What do you actually talk about? How does the one-to-ones look like in this new world of managing managers? How do you know if your managers are thriving or struggling under the weight of what they're doing? Today, we're giving you 3 things to anchor every check in you have with your managers. Hi, I'm Sarah Wilson, a fractional COO and operational turnaround partner for founder led SMB. I help businesses struggling with complexity and challenges within the operational core of their business. I work with founders to install scalable, repeatable processes that unlock growth with teams and tools they already have.
And hi, I'm Penny Cook. I'm also a fractional COO and a strategic operations consultant, helping product and consumer brands install, upgrade, and run scalable operations and operational systems that reflect the founder's unique vision and ambition. Let's get into it. Sarah, this is such an important topic because once you're at the level of managing managers, you are teaching the next generation of leadership in your company to become leaders while still supporting them being managers. And it's very different than managing ICs, as you pointed out. It's harder for you and a little more inappropriate for you to jump in and do work and solution. Instead, you're creating an organization that understands how to solution based on the guidelines that the company sets. And that's tricky, right? So the first thing in a one-on-one, and one of the most important things to make sure that those communication lines between you and your managers stay open, the personal check-in is the first thing we're going to do. This isn't even operational. This is just, how are you doing? Right? And these managers are hopefully asking their people this question in their one-on-ones as well. So we're setting the bar here, demonstrating through our actions how we want them to act, but we also really care how they're doing. Um,
Yes.
the conversations between this and jumping right in to talk about performance, you're going to unlock a different level of thinking once you are able to diffuse some of the stress that your managers have on their plate or some things that may be distracting them. And frankly, you want to get to know them as people. If they have something wonderful going on in their life, you as their manager should know about it. And similarly, if they have some challenges, you also want to know about that and help guide them. Right, Sarah?
Absolutely. It's so important really in this piece. I love how you said that we're modeling the culture that's in our organizations, right? We really care about how our managers are doing because that is the foundation for how they're going to show up as leaders for their teams.
Yeah. And a couple concrete things that you can ask are, how are your one-on-ones going with your team? Is there anyone on your team that you're worried about? Find out how these check-ins are going for them. Find out what's stressing them out at work or in their personal life. And remember that sometimes they're struggling with things and they don't want to tell you. So we want to respect boundaries, but we also want to be able to know enough about the people we're managing to really help support them. And
Yeah.
one of the ways I think to maybe pull out some difficult conversations is to model imperfect behavior too. You can let them know if you're struggling with something or if you're celebrating something. Don't take up all the air in the room and don't make the whole conversation about you, but model the kind of behavior you want to see from your managers.
Yes, perfect. I love that, Penny. And it leads us really well into, you mentioned it before, how our one-on-ones going with the team, that is a really key, second thing, brings us to our second point of things to go through in your one-on-ones with your operational managers. Because it really comes down to you alone aren't your organization's culture. The way your organization culture shows up for your employees is primarily through these managers that we're talking about. You set the tone for your managers and your managers set the tone for the individual contributors. So it's how you keep an eye on and keep your ear into how their one-on-ones are doing. That's critical because again, how they're modeling, how they approach their teams is how culture that you want to see is going to show up.
It's a great point, Sarah, in what they do. Really, your managers, I think, are the megaphone of your culture in your company. And so checking in with how they're supporting that culture is so important, as you pointed out, and asking things like, how is your team interacting with each other? What's the synergy like? When did you last give someone some developmental or critical feedback? What did that look like and how did that go? So you can
Yes.
really understand kind of culturally how is information and specifically how are challenges being addressed on your team? And are they in keeping with the way the company wants to be seen and wants to interact?
Yes, and listening to those how that's going can tell you a lot without telling you a lot. Like the words being said can give you quite a hint into how those one-on-ones are going, for example. How are those meetings going? Are they having really investment conversations? Are they investing in their people's skills? Are they building them up? Or do those conversations have a tone of frustration?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Are we seeing some turf wars brewing? Are we seeing problems that are simmering underneath the surface?
Yeah, are they struggling with other teams? Are there other managers who are threatening their place in their position and maybe that's challenging to them. So these are all cultural things that we want to suss out on a regular basis when we're talking with our managers.
Exactly. And I think that piece about developmental feedback is when I want to point to again is asking very key questions to your operational managers. When's the last time you gave someone developmental feedback? Developmental feedback can feel really challenging. It can feel like one of those, maybe those difficult conversations that people might stay away from. And I always, always, always advocate that difficult conversations are the ones we should be running towards. When we have real developmental conversations with our teams, that's investing in them and it's for their benefit and it's for the benefit of the business. So it's understanding how frequently those conversations are happening with your operational managers is key.
Yeah, Sarah, you nailed it. This is an investment. Every interaction you have with your managers, these one-on-ones are an investment in the development of your managers because they are the next leaders of your company or the next leaders in your industry. And the time that you take to tee up these conversations and how carefully you construct them and give them feedback and model behavior really sets the tone for how you want them to behave as managers and who they're becoming as leaders. And once you do that, you've really opened the door to the third thing, which I think is where a lot of managers tend to start the performance check in. How is the business doing? So we started first with how are you doing? Personal check in. How is the team doing? The cultural check in. And now the performance check in. How is the business doing under your leadership? Team performance is a lot about outputs. And at the org level, the outputs come on a very micro basis for managers, right? They're looking at a day to day, like, how much progress have you made on this project? What is this, operational metric? And you as a leader aren't looking at those micro points of data, or maybe you shouldn't be, but you're dealing with output. So how do you translate that in having that performance conversation with your manager?
Yes. The other thing to consider is this is a really great opportunity to help build the muscle within yourself as a leader and within your operational manager's capability. Is if you've maybe at one point in your career been managing that metric yourself, it might take some practice to step back and not fall in that micromanaging trap. So this conversation of how the business is doing is a real opportunity for that operational manager to flex their ability to speak to the metric, share the details, but elevate it to your level, sharing with you what's important. And then that's also your opportunity to step back and let them practice that skill because we know that both of you are probably on a journey of practicing both of those things.
Yeah, that's such a good point to be developing your own leadership skills where you step back and let them solve their problems, but really be that backstop for them. So they understand they have someone to support them, they have someone to ask them good questions, and they have someone who understands the situation to solution with them. And I'll give you a quick example of this that comes to mind as we talk through it, Sarah, is I had an operations org where we were really struggling with keeping in alignment with our sales and marketing and production teams around us. The product team was having a challenge with that, and it kept coming up in these manager check-ins that was a challenge. And as we worked through what is the culture in how we are allowing cross team communication, how do we make sure that is how do we encourage that behavior in the organization? And the manager decided, we should have a regular meeting with these other teams. So all of these little things that are bugging all of the teams because we're not in alignment, let's get everyone to be able to put these things out on the table and talk about them once a month where we get on the same page. And this great solution where all of a sudden we were able to have both a cultural and then performance check-in across different teams was incredibly valuable. And what we found was every single time when we opened up that agenda for people to start putting items on, there were incredibly valuable items that were being discussed. And we found opportunities to get in alignment where we were able to have better production schedules that were more in touch with what sales and marketing needed outside of our S&OP process. And we also had people who were supporting each other on the team that then they would reach out, hey, I have this thing going on. I think you guys should know about it. I think you should be doing this. And it were these little seeds that were planted from this one struggle that a manager was having that grew great flowers in the organization of, we were really able to have better conversations. And as a leader, I didn't have to be part of it. I was letting the organization lead and find ways to do the things that we wanted to do in keeping with what the executives wanted the culture to be in the organization.
That is a great example. Truly executing on your leadership style or the leadership style of the organization really demonstrate the culture that the company wanted to have. Absolutely love that example. And the other piece is, of course, the cross-functional piece is, I learned to speak of it recently differently, but it's the seams in between the culture or in between the functions, sorry. So the seams in between the functions are often where we find the most dysfunction. So anything that can get us to blend our expertise and our sharing and our collaborating across functions, absolutely a huge opportunity in any business for improvement. The other thing I wanted to point to in terms of when we're thinking about the conversations of how the business is doing, we really want to make sure that we're going to resist the urge to solve our manager's problem for them. So it's a fine balance. We want to encourage our managers to be problem solvers, but we still want to provide support. So what I'm proposing isn't a come to the meeting with just solutions mindset, but it's really drawing on those managers' expertise. They likely have the solution already, but they haven't got there themselves, or maybe they're lacking the confidence to get there themselves. And they've maybe come to the meeting and it lands in the meeting like they're asking for you to solve it or for your help when it's really they need to understand themselves that they actually have the expertise for the solution. So here's the thing about managing operational managers. It is no longer your job to have all the answers, and that can be hard because most of us got into operational leadership by being good at solving problems. And now the work is building the people up around you up to be able to solve the problems themselves. 3 check-ins that we talked about today aren't just a one-to-one agenda. They're a way of staying calibrated with your leaders to ensure that they're growing their people, that they're carrying the culture, and that the business is being driven forward in the way that we want to see. And not because you're watching over their shoulder, but because you've built the kind of relationship that they tell you if that wasn't happening. So the main takeaways from the episode today are that your managers don't need you to solve the problems. They need you to build them into the people who do. Culture isn't what you intend. It's actually what your managers model every day. And the performance question at the organizational level isn't we hit our numbers. It's have we built the conditions and the structure to keep hitting them. If this resonated, we'd love to hear from you. Find us on LinkedIn or on our website. And if you're navigating these leadership conversations within an operational transition right now, reach out. This is exactly the kind of work that we love to dig into. And please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Because great businesses don't just happen, they operate on purpose.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Penny.
See you
Have a
next
good one.
time.